So I would like to introduce you to Patrick. Patrick is our guest speaker today. Patrick is, I just saw that. Patrick is, is the founder of Crossover Transformation and the CEO of C3 Capital. He is passionate about working with individuals and organizations that are interested in creating opportunities for their teams to grow so that they can lead transformational change. Patrick is married with 2 children and lives in Joburg. And Patrick, with that, I'm gonna hand over to you. I'm gonna stop sharing so you can manage your own slides. And with that, over to you, Patrick.
Thank you so much, Rosie. It is always such a privilege to share on this platform. So thank you so much for the amazing work that you guys are doing as the School Leadership Forum. I mean, I've spoken to several people who are part of headmasters, teachers, and all the information I hear about what you are doing is just amazing. So yeah, well done to you and your team. To everyone else, good afternoon. Thank you so much for the privilege to be able to share this afternoon. As Rosie has already mentioned, my name is Patrick Kuwana, and I am just one of those people who is very passionate about raising up leaders, working with organizations that are focused on building good leaders and using their organizations to create even more leaders. And what is really such a privilege for me on a day like this, addressing this particular audience, I always make the comment that teachers and the people who are in the educational sphere are the people who build the foundation of nations. Because all of us, irrespective of where we are in life, whether it's the president of a nation, whether it's the CEO of the biggest listed company in Johannesburg, it doesn't matter. We have all come through education. We have all been mentored and molded by teachers for a very good part of our lives. And therefore, the foundation of nations is built upon the work that you do as teachers and people in the educational sphere. So I really want to start off by honoring you for the work that you do and for how you serve. Unfortunately, without the recognition that you truly deserve. So as one who has come out of the hands of teachers, as one who has children who are currently in the hands of teachers, let me just take this time to say thank you so much for the work that you do. Thank you for the sacrifice that you make. Thank you for building the nation as you are doing through your work. Let me move on to the presentation that I've prepared for this afternoon. And the idea is I want to maybe spend about 25 to 30 minutes going through the presentation and then have perhaps about 10 minutes of breaking into groups so you can have a bit of a discussion, and then we can come back and do some questions and answers after that. So the topic we want to talk about is why is it important for leaders to constantly develop and reinvent themselves? And I think there is no greater time ever than the times that we are in now, with everything that has happened in the world over the last 2 years with the pandemic, the effects of the pandemic, what that has done in people's lives, what that has done with people emotionally, what it's done with people financially, their livelihoods, etc. It's been a time of so much turmoil and so much chaos that there is no better time for leaders to truly embrace the element of constantly reinventing themselves, because some of the things that we did very well in the past might not be so pertinent anymore, and therefore we need to be constantly looking and developing new skills. Let's go. Let me hang on. I'm failing to get my slides to move here. Sorry, just hang on for 1 second. Okay, sorry, there we go. So let's talk about the definition of leadership. Thank you so much for all your definitions that have been coming through. I've put together here 3 definitions. I was quite stunned when you look online for definitions of leadership. There are over 10,000 definitions of leadership that are online. But anyway, let's go through these 3. Leadership is a process of social influence which maximizes the efforts of others towards the achievement of a goal. And I want to focus on a few words. Influence is a critical word in that. Maximizing the efforts of others is also very important, and the achievement of a goal is also very important. The second definition talks about leadership is the art of motivating a group of people to act towards achieving a common goal. So again, in that definition, we see motivating a group of people. So there's a people element that's involved in leadership here. There's a motivational element that's involved, and also it is towards achieving a common goal. So again, there's a goal that's involved in here. The third definition I've got here is a leader is someone who can see how things can be improved and who rallies people to move toward that better vision. So this is talking about vision. It's about seeing a better vision, a better way. It's also about providing solutions. So when we talk about seeing how things can be improved, this is about solving problems. This is about making improvements. And it's somebody who rallies people. So again, we see this people coming in again, the motivation of people, the maximizing the efforts of others. It's drawing people so that we can achieve something together. So these are the 3 definitions of leadership, and a lot of the comments that you made in the chat already link into some of these attributes that are given in this definition of leadership. So let me move on to the next one. Sorry, just forgive me here. For some reason, my slides seem to be taking a long time to actually change. So I'm not sure what's happening here. Just give me a bit of leeway here. Let me try and get the technology working here. Okay, there we go. So let's talk about who is a leader. If you have influence over 1 or more people, you are a leader. And let's talk about that a little bit more, because leadership is about influencing people towards a particular direction. And as I always make the point, leadership is not a position, it's your ability to influence. So what that means is that, interestingly enough, the leader might actually be somebody who does not necessarily have the position. So the question to ask is, even as we are in our classrooms, if we have a young child who might even be very destructive in the class, who is constantly creating chaos in the class, that child, if they can pull the rest of the class towards them and towards their destructiveness, they can very easily become the leader in the class and even lead you as the teacher, if you as the teacher do not deal with that and actually bring discipline so that that behavior does not continue. So we must always remember one of the most important traits of leadership is the ability to influence people. And leadership is not necessarily about position, it's about who can influence. Let's talk a little bit about the purpose of leadership. And I love this quote from Madiba, where he says, "It's always seems impossible until it's done." And I think that summarizes part of what a leader is all about. A leader is somebody who's willing to tackle something that is seemingly impossible, but to drive what is seemingly impossible so that it is done and people are drawn into contributing towards the achievement of that particular goal. So we have this acronym that we call V-STEEL, which speaks about the critical areas of leadership purpose. First of all, as a leader, it is critical for you to be able to carry a vision and to be able to articulate that vision. Because when you carry a vision, that is what people will buy into, and that becomes the essence that will influence people to follow you. When people follow a leader, it is because that leader is carrying a vision that those people want to associate with, want to contribute towards, and a vision that they want to become part of. So let me also make this point very clear. Leadership is not about exerting control over people. Leadership is not about forcing people to follow you. Leadership is about people following you because they want to follow you, because they see something that you are carrying that is attractive to them, that also lines up with what they want to achieve. So vision becomes very critical. If there's one thing a leader should be constantly doing, is articulating vision, speaking about the vision, speaking about what is the desired future that we want to achieve together. An amazing attribute of a leader is also being able to bring the people that you are working with on board so that the vision is not just yours, but it becomes a common vision that everyone has bought into. When a vision is in place, a leader then takes up the position of being the servant. And what do I mean by servant? As the servant, the leader is now ensuring that the people who are bought into the vision, the people that you are influencing, the people who are following you, are now taught, trained, equipped, and empowered to play their part and to contribute what they need to contribute towards making that vision real. So I cast a vision, we've bought into the vision. Once we've bought into the vision, I want to make sure as the leader that every single person who is following this vision is equipped, trained, taught so that they can do their best. I want my people to be successful. And therefore, as a leader at this point, my measurement of success is, my people, are the people who I'm influencing, the people who are following me. I want to be measured based on their success. And therefore, everything within me is now focused on helping them to ensure that they are successful. And this is where this teaching, training, equipping, empowering comes in. It doesn't necessarily mean that as the leader, I'm the one who's doing the training or the teaching or the equipping or the empowering, but I'm making sure that they have access to the resource that is required to be able to do that. Whether it means that I'm making sure that I've got training budget for them to be able to train or to be trained on the right tools. Maybe it's making sure that I've got the right budget for them to be able to go on training programs, to attend conferences, etc. But I'm putting my effort to make sure that the full potential of my people is being harnessed so that we can achieve what is seemingly impossible. After they are empowered, what I want to do is I don't want to be a leader that holds on to my people and becomes overbearing. I want to let them go so that they can go out and do what they need to do. And then lastly, I also then want to make sure that I can evaluate and measure the progress that they are making and help them to do even better. Because that's the only way we can jointly then achieve the visions that we are trying to achieve. Let's quickly talk about a simple process of leadership, bringing vision to reality. So how do we walk this journey of taking something that is seemingly impossible and it ends up being possible because we have done it? As a leader, we have to be constantly thinking about what is the desired future that we want to see. So if this is in your school environment, what is the desired future that you want to see around your school? That has to be very clear because that's part of your vision. There has to be a shared desired future. It might be things that are measurable, such as in 5 years, we want to have a pass rate of 90%. By the end of 2022, we want to make sure that our fields are now fully maintained. We want to make sure we have a water system. We want to make sure we have a new building block built. Whatever that desired future is, it has to be well articulated. It has to have clear objectives and clear goals. And that's block number one. But at the same time, as leaders, we have to go back to block number two. And block number two is asking ourselves the question, what is the current reality? And often this can be the most difficult part because the current reality is saying, let's be honest with where we are right now. As much as we want to get to this desired future, let's also make an honest assessment of where we are. And so we have to come up and also clearly define the current reality. The current reality is maybe we don't have enough funds. Maybe we don't have enough teachers. Maybe we don't have a good enough parent-teacher association. Whatever those are, the current reality has to be clearly defined. Because that then brings us to the third box, which is the constraints. And what the constraints are talking about, this is saying, okay, what are the challenges that we know we have to overcome? We've seen the desired future. We know that we are currently in the current reality, but let's talk about why. what are those things that we need to overcome to be able to get us to the desired future? So it might very well be constraints, could be we don't have enough qualified teachers. Our classrooms are too big. Whatever those constraints are within your environment. And by the way, current reality and constraints might very well be driven by external challenges that are taking place around us. Constraints might also be impacted by historical legacy. So what are some of the historical legacy issues that we still have to deal with? And again, these are some of the tough things that leaders have to grapple with, because often the constraints that we are dealing with today are as a result of historical legacies. This is almost going back to, are we dealing with symptoms or are we dealing with root issues? As a leader, we want to be digging to find what are the root issues. Because if we deal with root issues, then all the symptoms go away. If we deal with symptoms, we will still end up in a problem later. So part of leadership is digging deep into the root issues so that the root issues are dealt with. Because as leaders, once we clearly understand these elements that I've talked about, we are now in a position to say, how do we put together a solution? What's the solution to this? We have identified the constraints. We have identified the root issues. Now we can begin to move into solution creation mode. What's the solution? How do we get rid of this constraint? Have we dealt with this legacy issue? Have we dealt with the root issue? If we deal with these things as solutions, are they going to get us further forward to the desired future? And by the way, once we have a solution, another critical element of leadership is the execution, the implementation, ensuring that the solution is actually implemented. And I think one of the things that we at times fail as leaders is that we can get into these strategy sessions, we get into these boss barades, we come up with all these ideas, but we then fail at the implementation, and therefore we end up in a cycle of just running talk shops that never result in any result. So it's important as a leader, solutions, but attached to those solutions has to be an execution or an implementation plan. And then the last thing is we also have to be focused on continuous improvement. Now that the solution is done, the implementation is done, could we do it better? Is there another way that we can do it better? So it's constantly thinking, how do I stretch the desired future? Once I've achieved one thing, how do I stretch it further and achieve the next thing? And that's where the continuous improvement comes in. So let's talk a little bit about from an organizational perspective, because you are all leaders within an organization. And so you as an individual leader and as individual leaders who are influencing other people to join you on the journey of achieving a desired future or achieving a vision, there are elements that a leader has to take into consideration at an organizational level. So we start off with vision. Again, I've mentioned it several times that it is so critical for a leader to be putting vision on the table. We need to be visionary leaders who are constantly articulating vision, because that's what attracts people to follow, because they want a vision of a better desired future. Once we have the vision, as I mentioned in the last slide, there's also that process of understanding what are the current reality, what is the constraints, what are the legacy issues, and from there we now need to build solutions and implement those solutions. And this is where strategy comes in. So a leader needs to be also very much driving the solutions and the implementation of those solutions. So that's where vision and strategy then come into play. But a leader is also responsible for the culture within their organization. Because if the culture is toxic, then it immediately creates an environment where the people who you are leading will not be able to engage and to perform at their best. So as a leader, one of my critical responsibilities is also to ensure that there is a positive culture in the organization, a culture that is conducive for people to engage and to be part of the vision. Because the final leg of this is, as a leader, I'm also ensuring that the people are on board, because this vision that we are trying to achieve, it's not achievable by just the leader. We need everyone on board to do their part for what we are trying to fulfill to actually be fulfilled. And so as a leader, I need to be a people person. I need to understand the needs of my people. I need to be able to have time where I can understand how they are doing, even at a personal level, especially in these stressful times that we are in. It's so important for leadership to engage with people, to have the heart side of people in it. Simple things. How are you doing? How are you doing at home? How are things going for you? How do we help to unwind the stresses and the strains that our people are facing right now by being good people-focused leaders? So you will see in this diagram right in the middle, we have leadership, because leadership is essentially the glue that brings these other four components together. The vision, the strategy, the culture, the people are all brought together by the leadership. And that's why leadership is so vital. Leadership at the end of the day will determine how well an organization will do. Even organizations that have the best people, if the best people are not working in a conducive environment, which is culture, if the best people are not bought into vision, if the best people are not involved in the solution and the execution of the strategy, then you can easily be an organization that has the best people, but that will not achieve anything. Leadership is about pulling all of these things together so that these 5 pillars begin to work and get the organization to where the organization needs to get to. Now, for us to do this, there are a number of skills as leaders that we need to hold on to. And I want to talk very quickly, because the whole essence of this talk today is talking about how we are constantly reinventing ourselves and how we are constantly in a position of relearning, learning more things so that our leadership can improve. So I want to talk very quickly about these 5 areas of human intelligence and how this plays a big role in developing what I call leadership intelligence. And I want to start off from the bottom. PQ, physical intelligence. Physical intelligence is talking about what is happening in the physical realm around us. This is where typically we are in a position of what I call self-preservation. If something dangerous happens, I'm going to immediately defend myself in a certain way. All I'm doing is my instinct is running through the lens of the physical realm. If a lion comes walking down the road, physical intelligence will kick in and I will run. My intellectual intelligence doesn't necessarily need to kick in at that point because my physical intelligence has already told me there's danger and I need to. So my physical intelligence is making the decision in terms of what I need to do. IQ is the area where a lot of us have spent a lot of time. IQ, intellectual intelligence, is talking about what we know in our minds. This is the education bit. This is the information. This is knowledge. This is what I know. This is the information. This is the data that I have. And so I am making decisions based on the data, the information that I have at hand. And therefore, I make a decision based on that. There might be an element where the PQ also comes in, but at an IQ level, it's all about information, it's all about data, it's all about the knowledge base that I'm carrying. The emotional intelligence now has to do more with how I am connecting to other people. I'm connecting with other people, and my emotional intelligence is beginning to say, well, hang on, how do I make a decision taking into consideration the other person or the other people that are around me? So I'm no longer just thinking about, well, physical, which tends to be very selfish. And in many instances, it's good for it to be that way, but in some instances, it's not. Intellectual, it's all about the information, whereas emotional is now saying, hang on, how do I also take into consideration that I'm interacting with other human beings here, and therefore I also need to think about how they might have different views to myself, and perhaps the intellectual information I have, perhaps I need to hear what they have, and let's begin to connect at an emotional level. And I truly believe, again, for you as education practitioners who are dealing with literally hundreds of kids who are coming from different environments, different emotional backgrounds, different physical backgrounds. You are dealing with parents, you are dealing with so many people. I believe emotional intelligence is almost, might even be the most critical skill that you are displaying when you are in a classroom dealing with kids, dealing with students, dealing with parents, etc., etc. So that's where emotional intelligence, it's that connection. Just above emotional intelligence is cultural intelligence. And what cultural intelligence is doing, it's beginning to also take into consideration that as much as I am connecting with people at an emotional level, there might be different nuances that come through because of the cultural differences that people are bringing. So I'm now operating where I'm not only taking into consideration the emotional aspect of my connection with people, but I'm also taking the culture. I'm recognizing that there might be cultural differences than that which belong to me. And I need to take that into consideration as I am making the various decisions that I make. You see, all of this is about decision making. Physical intelligence, you're making a particular decision. Intellectual intelligence, you're making a particular decision based on data, information, knowledge. Emotional, your heart kicks in. You're starting to make decisions at a heart level. Cultural, again, the heart is also involved. Emotions are involved. And then the last one that's there is what I call spiritual intelligence. And spiritual intelligence, this means different things to different people, again, depending on who you are. and how you view spirituality, how you view the world at a bigger level, how you view the purpose of the world, the purpose of who you are, your place in the world. You can define what that spiritual intelligence means to you. But for our purposes here, this is just the place where your core beliefs will emanate from. If I have a core belief that forgiveness is important, then what that means is that if something happens at a physical level where somebody hurts me, if I'm purely thinking with my physical intelligence might say, I need to hurt them back. If I take it to an intellectual intelligence, I'm not sure what that will say. My emotions might say, you know what, I don't have any emotions. But at a spiritual level, I might be thinking, but hang on, my core belief is forgiveness. Interesting enough, I think Nelson Mandela had that core belief. So he didn't act out in retribution to even people who wronged him, because I believe he had a greater emotional, cultural, and spiritual intelligence through which he reflected everything and said, but no, even though I've been hurt, I will forgive because I'm going to default to the highest belief authority in my decision making. And that's how all of these things fit in together. So the point of sharing this is to say to you, as leaders who are constantly looking to reinvent, who are constantly looking to build new skills, consider how you are building your skills across these 5 areas. Perhaps even do an evaluation of yourself and say to yourself, where am I in these 5 areas of human intelligence? Where do I maybe need some more training, some more skills development? Or even let me actually do a self-assessment and see which one of these am I not using well enough, or which one of these have I not considered to be important, but now need to bring to the fore so that I can become a better leader. Because all of this is taking place within us, and it needs to be developed. The physical needs to be developed. The knowledge, the intellectual has to be developed. The emotional, how we connect to people. The cultural, understanding the different nuances of culture. And the spiritual, where is my base? Where is my core belief? What are the core values that I carry? That's all coming out of that spiritual intelligence space. So this is more or less what I wanted to share with you. And hopefully I will be able to shed a bit more light when we get to the question and answer session. But what I would like us to do, and Rosie, you obviously know how to facilitate this, if we can go into groups, and perhaps you can spend a minute each within your groups just to share with your group what has impacted you the most out of what I have shared, and also what do you want to do about it? What has impacted you the most, and what's the next action? What is it that you are drawn to do as a result of this particular discussion that we've had today?